Naghahanap ka ng saysay
Okay.
sa araw-araw na
Okay.
pamumuhay.
Can I,
Paikot-ikot na
Ansel, okay na po.
panahon.
Okay. Good morning,
Walang
everyone.
lakas, sunggaban ng
Good morning.
pagkakataon.
Paumanhin nyo na, may na-requestan ako, sana pumayag siya, para mag-start kita ngunya na aga ning matiwasay ang pamatik. Edna, can I request for you to lead the opening prayer, tabi?
So, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, Amen. Lord God, we are here in your presence, although virtually, but as you have said, anybody who is gathering in your name, you are there. And so we ask for your presence today, oh God. Guide us in our discussions. Keep us safe in our respective homes, wherever we are, and give our speakers clear mind. Likewise, all who are participating in this discussion, give us all the proper attitude and right frame of mind so that everything that we need to learn, we'll be able to learn, and make this also a chance for us Ibalonians to get together and again come in unity in everything that we have to take up. This, Lord, we pray in your name. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Salamat, tabi.
Okay.
Edna.
Okay.
Okay, welcome po para sa gabos na haramion na sa satuyang webinar. Bali, ini ang second webinar to baga. So, enot na webinar was focused on stress management during the pandemic. Kung hihilingon, ini garo segue, garo karugtong lang ini kang enot na webinar actually. If the first webinar was focused on, giving us an overview on what we were experiencing during the first few months, ining topic tangon yan, it goes deeper and allows us to reflect on what have we been through for the past months. No? So, bali pa para sa pag-umpisa ng ating pasensya na tabi, naghalo-halo ang aking lingwahe ngunyan. Before I call on TG pala, I think my instruction was to introduce you first to the house rules. We have 3 house rules para sa webinar na ini. Ang enot, paki-check lang tabi na naka-slide ang mode nindo, no? Side by side, para nahihiling nindo sa speaker. Dahil may mga presentation kita at dyan, para may may space para sa presentation na ipapahiling sa kuya at dyan. Ang ikaduwang house rule tabi, this webinar will be recorded. So, we are recording this, pero for purposes of documentation. Data man yan ipapublish without your consent. So, that's the second rule, no? House rule. And the third house rule, dahil sa experience na kang enot na webinar na medyo excited baga kita, no, disigitan hero, na-observe kang team na medyo dahil nakakatabang sa facilitator na nadidistract ng pati sa ibang mga participants. So, ang request na tabi mo yan, i-keep natin yung video na naka-on as much as possible. And especially during the discussion, na may presentation na so speaker taon yan. And also, so pero syempre, excuse naman pagkaipuhan ta magduman sa CR or coffee or whatever, pero bako man magsarabay, just to ensure na di nakaka-distract sa ibang participant. Okay, yan lang tabi ang house rule stuff for today. Okay, so now I think I would like to call on President TG para sa opening remarks sabi.
Thank you very much, Azel, and welcome everyone again. And of course, before we introduce our facilitator, I just would like to say thank you in advance again for our facilitator for graciously acceding to our request to be our resource speaker and facilitator for this afternoons or morning till noon times webinar. As Azel mentioned, it will be a sort of an informal and yet slightly structured webinar program. We'll have a brief lecture first from Dr. Barbaza. We fondly call him Dr. Momok. And we'll have some breakout sessions too in the context of the seminar topic, which is giving up, taking in lessons from the pandemic. And very quickly, some of you may have been familiar with initiatives of our Alumni Association. I would just like to very briefly discuss this so that we will be in proper perspective. Of course, this is a picture of our BOD. Some of them will be joining in a little while, but most of them are already here. To my left, Attorney Cherry, then of course past President Albert Molina. Then we have another batchmate of mine, si Kian Palencia, Carlos Borromeo, then slightly younger colleague, si Judy, together with Anton, who is co-hosting this webinar series. Mac was in as early as 4 o'clock this morning, so I had to request him to be back at this time. Napaaga ng pasok si Mac kanina. And of course, our secretary, board secretary Azel. Then we have Macho Karl. And not in this picture, but are also very, very active are, of course, Dennis, Dr. Dennis or Dr. Richard, and Manay Azel.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here there na, Dr. Oh, are you there also, Sherry? Manay Sherry.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Let me just continue by saying that this webinar series is actually part of our specific programs. It falls under the non-medical options that we have for the pandemic times. Of course, some of them will be on continuing basis, even if our prayers will be answered, that we will be having some sort of cure and probably vaccines in the very near future. But meantime, we will try our humble best to help provide some assistance to our fellow Bicolanos and of course our incumbents. So be that as it may, I may probably have enough time later on to discuss some of this. But Anton, can you stop sharing this already? So we can go back to the gallery view. We call this program the Ibalonian program. And it's really a combination of our ideals and our aspirations to be of continued help. It is from the 3 words that we have coined this. Okay. One is, of course, what we call the Ibalonian program, Ibalon. The second root word is ibangon, in other words, to be of service to our constituents. And of course, the third word is ngayon, considering the urgency of the matter. So together, like any program, it becomes even more successful with the continuing involvement and dedication of our fellow Ibalonians. So with that, We are very, very excited and honored to have a lot of you here again. We have 25, 26 participants now. We have confirmed attendees from about 30, and probably another 5 more will be joining in a little while. So on that note, I will pause at this juncture and turn it over to Azel for the introduction of our facilitator. So once again, let's give everyone, all participants who are here, in spite of the rumored slowdown in the internet. We have guests from all over the country and all over the world. Early bird is Jose Sala from Texas, and of course our former president too and facilitator in the presence of in the person of Gods. Thank you very much, all the way from Canada, and of course all those from the Philippines, Albay, Davao, Manila, San Pedro, and so on and so forth. So with that, let's give everyone a big round of applause. Thank you very much for making it for this webinar program for today.
Thank you, President TG. Okay, bago ko tabi ako dun si Professor Momok, tawag ko lang kamuning brief, very brief na description to introduce Momok. Actually, palagay ko kulang ang 1 hour to describe Momok. Sa gabos ng mga nababasa ko sa Facebook, sa dyaryo, mga nasi-share niya mga views. Based on give me na introduction for this activity, Momok, to those who know him in UP Ibalon, nagtapos siya ng AB Linguistics sa UP Diliman. That was the time na nag-join siya sa Ibalon sometime in 1983. And sayang day kita nagkaabutan, 81 na ako sa UP kadto. Tapos he nag-enroll siya, nagtapos siya ng MA in Philosophy sa Ateneo de Manila University. That was in 1994. Tapos day pa nagkasya doon. Nag-enroll pag-iraray siya ng further studies, higher studies. Nagtapos si Momok ng PhD in Philosophy. Sorry, di ko ma-pronounce ining lugar sa Munich, Germany. But that was in 2002 with a dissertation. And on Heidegger, am I right? And concept on dwelling. Kunyan, he's an associate professor in Ateneo de Manila, sa Katipunan. No? And he focuses on, he's working on questions about the city, itong pagkasira ng mga syudad, environment, about language, about translation, and various aspects about the culture ng humanity. Tigre-recall ko kung anong sisay ang mga kasabay kadto ni Momok. Hindi ko sure kung sinda Wilma ba? Sinda Richard? But anyway, siguro at yan, mag-story na lang tabi sa tuya si Professor Momok kaini. So, with that, may I call on Professor Remmon Barbaza, who will be facilitating and providing us share his insights on giving up, taking in lessons from the pandemic. Okay po.
Salamat, Azel, sa introduction. Clear ba yung audio?
Yes.
The audio is okay?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes po.
All right, so let me share my screen.
Wave ka muna sa crowd, Doc.
Oo.
Wave.
Wave. Wala bang group photo?
Mamaya, marami na.
So, good morning once again. Maray na aga sa Indogabos, pero yung iba yata, banggi na, no? Malaking pasalamat sa mga kina TG, Azel, sa Board of Directors ng UP Alumni Association ng Ibalon. I was talking to messaging TG yesterday. Sabi ko, grabe yung judgment call ni TG. Ang galing. Mahirap na desisyon kung itutuloy ngayong araw o hindi. But, TG being TG, no? He makes good judgment calls. So, maraming salamat. No? dakol naman ako nalingawan na mga Bicol na tataramon kaya magkahalo-halo ang English, Tagalog at Bicol. So pasensya na tabi. No? So it's good to see many people that I've not seen in a long time. Si Julie, I think first time ko nakita. Si Kulas, lagi kong ka-chat. But it's good to see familiar faces and also new ones. So welcome again. Thank you for coming to this morning's webinar. No? Okay. Actually, bako man ini lecture, no, medyo na-overwhelm ako sa salitang lecture. No? Pero ano lang, more of exchange, of insight sharing of my insights, of my experience in the pandemic. No? So today, let me speak about losses and gains, no? And what we might learn from them. No? And no, I'm not talking about what we see when we step on the weighing scale, no? But rather what we find in our innermost selves. Sa ika nga ni isang Jesuitang pari, si paring Albert Alejo, paring Bert, no? Yung kaloob-looban ng tao. No? Who would have thought, no? This molecule, so tiny it cannot be seen by the naked eye, has turned our world upside down. Was it named Corona, perhaps because it's like a crown of thorns? What agony still awaits us? Are we perhaps being led to our own Golgotha? No. I wish I was just being too negative, no, or too pessimistic. But as more and more people whom I personally know are getting affected, some of them even dying, one of them being in my own family, we know that this is really more serious than perhaps we'd like to believe. Most of us will survive the pandemic for sure, but none of us is spared of the experience of losing, of giving up. And today I'd like to speak about that. Perhaps it's also true what they say, that for everything that we lose, we stand to gain something. As we give up on something, we may also be taking in something new or something old, but long hidden. I would like to talk about that too. So let me share with you my experience of 3 things I lost or had to give up. I'm sure I share these experiences with at least most of all of you. So the first one, well, I hope it's just me, but of losing family and friends. This has got to be the most painful loss one can ever experience. Friends and family members getting sick, or worse, even dying. As we watch helplessly a loved one die, we too are forced to confront our own mortality. Last June 21, my wife Arlene and I came to Antipolo, where I am now, to celebrate Father's Day. We brought a special cake for our beloved Papa. 6 days later, he would drop unconscious at their home here, severely injuring his head, and then falling into a coma at the hospital, and eventually dying on July 2. It was really a shock because he was very healthy, very active. And he just retired 3 years before. And so it was completely unexpected. So he didn't die of COVID, of course, because he fell unconscious. But my mother-in-law was telling me how he was deeply affected by the pandemic. And she noticed how he was getting depressed and disoriented. So whether we get the virus or not, we really get affected by the pandemic. So who would have thought that it was the last Father's Day cake that my wife was to hand our Papa? So this was the photograph I took with my cell phone, and that was to be the last Father's Day cake that she would be giving my father-in-law. And this was on the second day in the hospital, it was Arlene, my wife, who was the only one who could get inside the hospital. And she comes out of the hospital, and I can't forget what she said. And she was really breaking down, and she said, "I just want my papa back." This is one of the most heartbreaking words I heard during the pandemic, indeed my whole life. To see my wife breaking down in tears saying, "I just want my papa back," and knowing that you cannot help her. That was really so painful. And then secondly, I think this is what we, most of us share, losing mobility, getting stuck at home, or at least the kind of mobility many of us were used to. Maybe this is a bit embarrassing about oversharing, but just to give a context why it was difficult for me, because my life, as you know, is a life of mobility. I like walking or riding my bicycle to work. This is me some years back, and this is inside the Ateneo campus. And that bicycle is a bicycle I bought from my former student, so it's a secondhand bicycle. And then I joined a little club, Team Loyola. And weekends, I would join my little club, Team Loyola. Most of whose members are half my age, no? Medyo sirang ulo ko, no? For joining them. Always kills me, when I try to keep up with them. No? And weekends, we head toward Sierra Madre. In this picture, you see we are climbing Sumulong Highway towards Tactac in Antipolo. At other times, we would ride to us from Katipunan. We would ride to as far as La Union or Caliray in Laguna, or do the Laguna Loop around the Laguna de Bay. And these guys are really crazy. They're even planning to ride all the way to Bicol. So, but the pandemic came. And I also, twice a week, I would be on the mats at the Ateneo Aikido Club, at Ateneo Blue Eagle Gym, trying to overcome my clumsiness and awkwardness in movement, and learning the spherical and flowing movement of Aikido. And then I would be, about twice a year, I would be 18 or 30 meters under the sea, experiencing movement and buoyancy of a different kind. So I miss all this movement and mobility. So you can imagine that this is in our house, in our townhouse in Quezon City. So all you could do is really eat, sleep, read, write, watch Netflix. But trying to be sane when you lose mobility is really, really something I think all of us had to struggle with. And then, of course, again, this is like for all of us now, losing human contact. One of my teammates from Team Loyola messaged us, "Can we perhaps meet? Hindi na makatiis. I haven't seen a human being in 3 months now." Out of the blue, he messages the team and tells us this. I myself, I haven't seen my parents since the lockdown began in March now. And they're in Laguna right now, in San Pablo, where I was born. So I haven't seen them since March. But more because, of course, I can, anytime maybe I can drive there, but I will be exposing them, of course, to danger. And also my wife's family here, I would also be exposing if I travel that far. So the brothers of my father-in-law, though living not too far away, one in Fairview and another in Baguio, could not even come and pay their last respects to someone they honor and esteem. So we just had one day of viewing of wake here in Antipolo. And it was so sad that his brothers, my father-in-law's brothers, could not come, even though they're not too far away. And the only sibling of my wife, who resides in Vancouver in Canada, I was telling Gods and Julie earlier, could not come home, of course, with all the restrictions. And so all this, losing human contact, and especially at a time when we need human contact all the most. So it's really, really very difficult and painful. Now, in reflecting on what we perhaps lost or what we perhaps had to give up, I remember this passage from Arthur Schopenhauer. Unfortunately, I don't have the book with me. It's in Quezon City in our house. We're staying right now in Antipolo to be with my mother-in-law to help her transition, because otherwise she'd be alone after the death of my father-in-law. So I left all my things. But as far as I can remember, this was the passage. So this is from the book, Die Kunst glücklich zu sein, The Art of Being Happy. Often we ask ourselves what it would be like if only we had this thing or that thing. If only we could travel to this or that place. And then he said, we should ask rather what it would be like if we lost that which we already have. Hindi ba? Madalas yun ang tanong natin, ano kaya kung meron ako nito? O meron noon? Ano kaya kung sawang-sawa na ako sa 32-inch TV? Ano kaya kung meron akong 65-inch TV? Ano kaya kung makapunta rin ako sa syudad na yon na pinuntahan ng kaibigan ko, nakita ko sa Facebook? Ano kaya kung makabili ako nito o noon? Ano kaya? Ano kaya? Fill in the blanks na lang. Mas mabuti, sabi ni Schopenhauer, na tanungin natin, ano kaya kung yung meron na ako ngayon, yun ang mawala sa akin? And I think this is an important reminder for us how easily we forget and take for granted that which we already have. So, yes, losing and giving up. But the other part of the story is gaining something and maybe winning something or receiving something new or maybe old that had been lying dormant within us. The first thing during the pandemic that I rediscovered is our animality. And of all things, it's a small bird that gave me a lot of thinking to do and reflecting to do. I took this picture of an olive-backed sunbird. Actually, maliit lang itong mga to eh. They're so small and it's easy to miss them, and they're usually just hovering around. So one of the earliest things I noticed, indeed discovered for the first time during the pandemic, was this tiny, beautiful birds called the olive-backed sunbird. These birds have been coming right in front of our house in Quezon City all this time, every day. But I've never noticed them, for the first time only during the pandemic. Because we have a yellow flowering vine, I think it's a Vietnamese name, Nong Nuch vine, hanging just beside our front door. How come I had never noticed them before? I started watching them, sitting for hours just to observe their behavior and even taking a few photographs of them. I'm sure all of us have seen photos of animals returning to the city during the pandemic. One might view it as the wild encroaching into urban spaces. But is it not truer to say that they are merely reoccupying what really belongs to them? Or that, like us humans, they are also simply trying to survive? We take pride in our being human and being superior to animals. We are quite ambivalent about our being animals, about our animality. On the one hand, we are awed by the power and strength of animals and name our sports teams eagles, tigers, falcons. Siguro yung Maroons and Archers didn't get the memo. No? We imagine superheroes as possessing the powers of animals, as in Spider-Man, Catwoman, Ant-Man, and so on and so forth. And yet, when we are disgusted by human behavior, what do we call them? Baboy. Hayop. Ano na naman kahayupan yan? Puro kayo kababuyan. Sino nagsabing masama ang magiging baboy? Kawawa naman yung mga baboy. No? So unfair. No? On what grounds do we dismiss deplorable human acts as befitting the swine? No? So our ambivalent appraisal of animals and animality is perhaps best shown by the fact that we use hayop, both to praise and to curse people. Hayop sa galing, no? Positive, praise. No? Hayop, but when also negatively, hayop ka, itigil mo na mga kahayupang yan. So we're quite ambivalent. On the one hand, positive, on the other hand, negative. So too, when we take pride in our being human, we say, tao ako, hindi hayop. Now, with pride, we try to distance ourselves and insist on our superiority over animals. Hindi ako hayop. Tao ako. And then, if we make a mistake, if we fall from grace, what do we say? Tao lang ako.
Sorry.
Again, the ambivalence. Sorry. Biglang pag nagkamali, sorry, tao lang ako. So, the ambivalence now. And when we say tao ako with pride, we mean we are closer to the gods, to the divinities, to the superheroes. But if there's anything that the pandemic is teaching us is this, that we need to find our way back to our being human as part of nature, and which means embracing our animality. This is another photograph I took. Look, again, in front of our house now. Look closely at how this sunbird is perfectly suited to the nongnuk vine. Its beak, for one, curved just right for it to be able to feed the nectar. You can't even see yung tongue niya, yung dila ang haba. Nature has already equipped and provided us with what we need. And its body is light enough to cling to the thinnest of branches. This is a very small vine, if you could see the actual nongnuk vine. And what of us human beings? Don't we have legs and arms? We must have been endowed with legs, not without reason. Aren't we called bipedal animals? Then why are we forever stuck in traffic instead of walking or running or riding bicycles? Sa Ateneo nga, some buildings have elevators, and I always tell my students, because I see a lot of them lining up on elevators, second, third floor lang yung pupuntahan, and I tell them, you're younger, you're even less than half my age, and you're using the elevator. Magsisisi kayo pag tanda nyo, pag hindi na kayo makapaglakad. Use it when you can, right? So, yeah, we forget about our bodies now, which we share with animals, and it's a beautiful thing that we have now. And I think you must have noticed this, no? So during the pandemic, all over the world, cities are now becoming more bicycle friendly. You know, we're rethinking. No? We're not living as we should. We're not designing our spaces as we should. And the basis for designing our cities has to do really with our physicality, which means our animality. No? So I think we need to rethink. No? And the second thing is, I'm really endlessly fascinated by this passage from Matthew. And look at the birds of the air; they do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? No, mahiya naman tayo sa ibon. Nung isang araw nga may pinanganak dito, 4 na kuting. No? Allergic si Arlene, so hindi ko alam kung anong gagawin ko doon sa mga kuting. No? Pero napapaisip tayo, no? Walang ospital, walang insurance, walang kung anong papeles, ano? At manganganak na lang basta. No? Incredible. No? So this reclaiming, second thing, reclaiming between movement. No? The balance between movement and stillness. Even what I experience as losing, mobility is really not just about moving, no? But really it's a balance between movement and stillness. No? Because it's not just movement that we need. No? When I look at the sunbird, for instance, the sunbird is able to move and access the nectar. If anything blocks its way, it would be unfair. I shouldn't get in the way of the sunbird getting its food from the nectar, from the flowers, right? we shouldn't get in the way of bees, right? Getting their food. And when something happens, something bad happens to the bees, then we know it will affect us as well. And later I will say that that's the third, the interconnectivity. But let's say with balance between movement and stillness. We need to move. Yeah, we need to move. I once gave a talk to in Benilde and also the Philippine Association of Interior Designers, and I talked about the kitchen design. You must have heard of the triangle, the kitchen triangle. No? So there's the oven, the storage, which is usually the refrigerator, and the work area, and you have to design your kitchen in such a way that there is free movement, so you can do what you have to do in the kitchen. And somebody said that the kitchen is the second biggest investment after the house itself. I gave that lecture because the kitchen is really central to the house, and you will be surprised. The word focus, the original meaning of focus is oven, is stove, is hearth. No wonder that the focal point of the house is the kitchen, because that's so when the title I gave to my talk was the warmth of the stove. But it's not just movement. No. Hindi pwedeng galaw na ng galaw. We also need to be still. We need to rest, right? So even as I talk now, we know that blood and oxygen are being distributed all over our bodies. It's an incredible movement going on inside our bodies. But we also wish that our spine should stay still and not move, right? Otherwise, it will hurt. The afternoon when we heard from the doctor that my father-in-law will not make it, and it was breaking our hearts, I was outside, and I was wearing my slippers on gravel, and then I saw the rocks. The pebbles, and then it hit me that, and then there were birds flying and butterflies flying, and I said there's movement all around me, but there's also stillness. Thank God the tectonic plates do not move more frequently than it should. Tectonic plates should be still most of the time, but once in a while it does move, right? So even as we move, run, walk, the whole universe is moving, but the sun is also must stay put, right? And not get closer to us. So this combination of movement and stillness. Azel was telling you that one of my interests is the city, because my dissertation in Munich was a concept of dwelling. And reading up on urban designers, everyone agrees that a city, a healthy city, is one where you have this balance. And some have made calculations that you must be able to access, essential things like grocery and go to the church or school within walking distance, and that every 200 meters there should be a place to sit. And so we should have benches and trees, because we need this move, stay put, movement, stay put. But in Metro Manila and many other congested cities, we are still when we shouldn't be still, like in traffic. We should be moving, and we are moving when we should not be moving. So we're getting really things upside down. And maybe some of you have read the data that, only 20% in Metro Manila, only 20% can afford cars, private cars. But they're given 80% of the space. So mobility really is also a question of justice. This is a photograph of a snail I took here in Antipolo. Again, animals showing me the way. And the snail taught me something. Pinaglaruan ko to kagabi. Uy, gumagalaw pala. And who is to say that a snail space is slow? By what measure? By whose standards? The snail moves at the exact pace that it needs to. and in perfect accordance with what it is endowed with and what it needs. Meanwhile, see how many of us human beings are running to and fro, frantically, endlessly harassed and enslaved by the compulsion to merely go faster and faster each time, but never quite knowing where we really want to go or what our true needs are in accordance with who we are and what we are blessed with. Fools that we are, we know that we have a lot of catching up to do with a snail. So these days, having not much to do, I watch a lot of here. We're blessed with a very big garden here at the back, and it keeps me sane. So I'm watching a lot of butterflies and bees and birds and snails and kittens getting born. And then finally, the interconnectedness of everything. And we can tie this up with my observation of animals and the combination of movement and stillness. We realize a lot of things during the pandemic, right? How come the farmers who feed us are the ones who are hungry? How come that the ones who build our homes are homeless? Right? And we know that if what we call the essential workers, if we know that if they're gone, we will not survive. Right? We have been really detached from our connectedness with not just nature, but human community. And I hope that if there's anything that the pandemic can teach us, it is this, the interconnectedness of everything. We all know about the danger that is threatening the indigenous tribes in Sierra Madre, in the building of the Kaliwa Dam. The very life and survival of the Dumagats are at stake. Then I saw this post on Facebook by an acquaintance of mine. And he said, there are 12 to 18 million people in Metro Manila who need water, and only about 50,000 members of the indigenous community who stand in the way of providing that much needed water. I was so shocked and in disbelief by what I read from this acquaintance of mine. I mean, how unjust can we be? That the indigenous community, sila na nga yung mas environmentally friendly, no? Sila yung mas may wisdom about the environment. They're the ones who will sacrifice for our sake, and we are the ones who are really destructive in our behaviors and habits. No? And how unjust can that be? No? The good news is that with my attempt to constantly challenge this position, this acquaintance of mine later on changed his position, no? And he saw that that really you can't justify this. No, it's not just a question of cost-benefit analysis. There are just 50,000 and we're 12. It's not about numbers, no, but it's really a more integral, no, and a understanding and appreciation of this whole interconnectedness. No? So perhaps the most important lesson the pandemic taught us is the interconnectedness of all things, all our concerns, environmental, natural, cultural, social, political, etc. All these are interconnected. The destruction of our environment, of indigenous communities, is as much a natural environmental concern as it is a profoundly ethical and political issue. We need to realize that one's own political indifference is itself a political position that will have serious political consequences. We can't just sit back and say, I'm not getting myself involved. How can we say that when we are benefiting from the work of others? How can I say that when I will not survive if I am completely detached? completely dissociated from others now. So political indifference really is an untenable position. One's indifference towards environmental issues is itself an environmental position that will have serious environmental consequences, and so on and so forth. So what of our future then? I like this. I don't know if you've seen the 2017 movie, The Young Karl Marx. And when the when the poor and the marginalized were being harassed and even killed by the property owners, and this is an unforgettable scene. I hope I see this old world shatter soon. And if you think about it, we don't have to be ideological. We don't have to be overly political about it. But the call, if you think about it, the call to simplicity, the call to use more renewable energy, the call to walk more, ride the bicycle more instead of using cars fed by fuel, again, linking to animals. What is that? What are those recommendations? Even Karl Marx, yung abolition of property, inheritance, and so on and so forth. In other words, buhay hayop. Di ba? Kasi when I scuba dive and I see Nemo, akala ko si Nemo pa-cute-cute lang doon. Galit pala siya eh. When you approach the clownfish, it's actually, it doesn't like it when you approach it. So it will come to you and telling you, this is my property. And I'm so amazed that the animal world, they don't have titles, they don't have properties as we have, and yet they do have a sense of boundaries. And if we leave we know how sad, whales, sharks, all sorts of dolphins, ingesting plastics and dying in the process. If we leave the animal world untouched by human activities, they will survive on their own. There's a lot of to watch in Netflix, National Geographic by or Earth. And anyway, I saw one when a group of, I think it was Hammerhead Sharks. And scientists they found it curious that a school of sharks were heading towards a place that they did not used to go to. So scientists are asking, what are they doing? Where are they going? And then only for them to discover that may sakit pala yung mga sharks. And they went to a place where there had this small, I think it was maybe, cleaners, like maybe shrimps, and cleaning them up and healing them in the process. Incredible. Animals don't have hospitals, but they have a sense of healing, right? So looking at the future, and I'm about to end here because I'd like to also hear from you and your insights, and we will have the breakout group and then the plenary later. This is the last two lines of a poem by Stefan Georg, a German poet, and the title is Word. And it's just a short poem, but he was meditating, reflecting on language. But if you read it, it's more than just language. And then he said, and so I renounce and sadly see where word breaks off, no thing may be. We have to find the words that will describe, indeed paint, the future that we imagine and envision. We have to find the language that will enable us to speak, to utter something into reality. But first, language demands of us that we learn how to renounce, to surrender, to forgo all this frenzied drive towards control, management, and calculation. Otherwise, as Stefan Georgi says in his poetic meditation on the word, no thing may be. Salamat sa Indogabos. Sana may napulot. I end here. I think at this point we have the Multimeter. So I will stop sharing now, right? No.
Galing, galing, galing.
Okay. I think may mga comments tabi sa chat.
Oh, may mga comments, sorry. Yeah.
Yes,
Let me see.
please check on them. Magayon ang mga feedback, magayon ang
Oh, yeah.
comments. So, I think
Exercise, got that, General Joe Sala.
And then also from Gods, Lanuza.
yeah, daming feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Ganda yan. That language does reflect our worldview. And perhaps
Yes, yes.
reflective of, I cannot pronounce it.
Zeitgeist. The spirit of the time. Yeah.
Spirit of the time.
Zeitgeist.
Oh, zeitgeist.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. No? Dennis, parang resource use conflicts again, recalling MacLean Dulac's advocacy. Yes. No. You know, actually, I always tell my students nga, no? If you look at the rice terraces, di ba, how incredible it was built. Up to now, the irrigation system is still working. They used a bit, wala naman silang degree sa engineering, di ba? But they did some real world engineering, right? They did some mathematical calculations and it's working. But
Right.
just enough. No?
Right.
I was saying kanina na one of the things we have to learn from animals is just the right measure. No? Hindi labis, hindi sobra. Kasi di ba, ang mga tao nagsa-stockpile tayo eh. A lot of wastage, a lot of waste. Animals, di ba mga beavers yata medyo nag-i-imbak ng konti, but just enough to lie them. Di ba? Tama-tama lang. No? And I think that's what we need to learn. No? Talagang maraming ituturo yung mga hayop sa atin.
Doc Momok, we can have our breakout sessions anytime now. If you would divide it into 5, that will be about 6. We have about 6 groups already, no? Composed of 5 members each.
We do the Mentimeter muna before the breakout.
Yeah.
Just to get the word cloud, just to get us.
So I sent you to your website po. So go to that website, menti.com.
Okay,
So everyone,
everyone,
please do that. Yeah.
Go to.
And then you will see a code there. So just write this code. Isi-send ko rin po sa chat.
Okay. Okay.
9918.
Yes,
99.
918.
8591.
Sorry po.
591. Okay.
591.
And click submit, no?
Yeah, enter a word and then click submit.
Any question?
The question is, write one word that best describes your experience of the pandemic. One word, just one word.
Screenshot already.
Okay. Good. At least we were getting a sense of how we are going through the experience. No, there's neither right nor wrong here. It's really, kanya-kanya tayong pinagdadaanan. No? So, but thank you for sharing. No, I think it's not surprising that anxiety, worry it seems to be the most or the number one, no? The one experience that is shared by most. No? Surreal also, yeah. Oo nga, no? All-encompassing. No? Feel free to comment just quickly lang about what we see from the screen. No?
Wow. Okay. Nasa gitna yung
There's-
worried.
Yeah. I think the way it works, kung mas dumadaming the same word,
Mas lumalaki.
lumalaki, no? Yeah, that's the sound
Yes po,
cloud.
tama
The word
po.
cloud. The word cloud, no? Yeah. But it seems like after worded, pare-pareho na yung sizes, no? Siguro ones lang yung ano, no? Yeah.
Nakalataan nyo ba, walang Tagalog o Bicol na salita?
Oo nga,
meron.
no?
Ay,
Meron pong Tagalog.
Meron.
Yung isa,
Meron.
gulantang.
Gulantang.
English naman
Ayan.
kasi yung
Gulantang.
question.
Hindi, yung question
kaya
kasi sa
din ang
English.
sagot.
Yun na nga.
Yan
yun
na,
nga.
may lumalaki
Sana-
na. Uncertain, humbled.
Kulas,
Yeah.
sa imo yan, ano?
Most probably, di ba ko? Pwede. Meron BBB. Pwede sa akin yung BBB lang ako.
Oy, nasa state si Kulas. Ang tawag mo sa kanya, Joe.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay na po,
Thank
Gabos.
you. Yeah, thank you. And then we have another one just before the breakout. We have another one or wala na ba? A second question?
Okay na po.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you everyone. At least we get a sense kung saan kita. Let me share my screen. For our breakout session, how much time do we have now, TG?
We can continue. 30 minutes.
For the small groups?
Breakout.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are my suggested questions. One, could you name one or two things that you lost or had to give up, and one of the two things you gained during the pandemic? And then secondly, how does this experience of losing and gaining shape the way you look at the future? Or in other words, what kind of a future might you be finding yourself committing to? So yeah, ano lang naman to, suggestion, but more or less ito yung topic that we will share with each other. And then make sure each of the small groups will have one representative to share with us at the plenary later on the summary of your group's sharing or discussion. Okay?
Okay.
Yes po, I'm assigning na po yung breakout rooms for a while
sige.
lang po.
Okay, sure.
These particular questions.
I was able to get the tail end of it.
Okay.
So,
Naka-bright ka
Okay,
naman.
no.
Taga-UP ka di ba?
teka muna, isipin ko, taga-UP nga ba ako?
Okay na po yung breakout rooms. I will assign it na.
Okay.
So you will be with the group for in a while po. In a small
Yeah.
group po. Okay.
Okay.
Hello. We're back.
We're back.
Yes.
Yes, we're back po.
Okay. Di ko nagpaparalik ang iba, no?
Grabe ang namamati. Abunganay ko ta magpahiling.
Talaga, bakit?
Yan ang ulo ko, tinan nyo, oh, may mga ako. Masakit ang ulo.
Okay, everyone back from the breakout sessions, no? Anton?
Yes.
Okay. So now I give the floor back to our professor for the day, Doc Momok.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so magsa-start na po yung kami na po muna yung group namin. So magpe-present po sa group namin si Judy Lynn.
Okay.
Wow.
So, hi po. So, narinig niyo po ba?
Yes.
Okay. So, yung sa first question, ano yung mga bagay na nawala at mga nag-gain? So, part kami nung sabihin natin younger batches. So meron pang may isa pang undergrad. So isa sa mga isang bagay na nawala yung sense of routine kasi he has to go on asynchronous learning na rin. So from home set up. Tapos yung iba nawalan din ng jobs, part-time and then full-time. And ito yung siguro pinaka masakit, yung part, yung mawalan ng, may iba rin na nawalan ng family members and relatives. So, na, hindi naman COVID-19 related, pero it's still difficult to process. At hanggang ngayon, those members are still grieving. Ganon. So, sa mga na-gains naman po, mostly time na mostly ginagamit sa pag-reflect about our own purposes din. Kasi syempre millennials kami, we're still exploring our choices sa careers, sa love life, gano'n. Tapos, marami rin pong bumalik dun sa hobbies namin na kinasanayan ng college, halimbawa magbasa, more time to learn, yun na, to explore our choices. At saka, more time to connect with our old friends and then with our family members. And then finally, dun sa last question, yung future na na-envision namin. Of course, after yung time na nag-reflect kami, siguro isa sa mga naisip namin na future is mas committed kami sa path na napili namin. And pwede rin gamitin yung COVID-19 pandemic as a marker kasi mas strong na kami at kumbaga pwede siyang gamitin na new me, new us na may renewed sense of purpose at connected sa family members at yun nga sinabi ni Doc Momok na we are all interconnected. Yun po, basically. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next group po, so si Sept po ma-volunteer.
Kami na group 6. So sa grupo ko tabi kay banan ko si Momok na narinig na ninyo yung lahat ng kanyang report. Tapos si Rose na nasa Magaraw at saka si Wilma na nag-exercise kasubago. Exercising. So generally we miss what did we miss? Socialization siyempre, kaibanan ng mga mga relatives and friends and office mates. Basically gabos kita nakamiss ng pakikipagpilingan sa kanila face to face. And also we miss traveling at will sa kabilang barangay because we have to carry our gate passes, and visiting our houses in the province. We also miss that. We miss going to the doctor for our appointment. No, igwa kitang mga hilang.
Sigurang ilang kigurang.
Nag-miss ko na si Arnel. Si Doc Arnel. So dahil ko na nagdudumanan, but also for very important check-ups like if you have diseases, you can readily go to the hospital sa nakakatakot. And we also miss going to mass. Being Catholic or even other religions, you can go to your place of worship. We also lost money. We lost money, those who don't have work, those who lost money from the stock, the downward spiral of the stock, the closing down of businesses, really bad for everybody. But we gained a lot. I think we can say that we gained a lot. We bonded with our family members. We bonded with our friends through Facebook, through Zoom, and other social media. We went back to our faith. Sabi nga ni, it's the only one that we can hold on to sa pagkatakot nasa harong. The virus cannot be seen. It's only through our faith that we held on to our sanity. And this is a realization na nanggaling si Momok na sinabi pa na may mga news reports na ang mga mag-aasawa nag-aaway-away o ang pamilya nag-aaway-away. But it was a realization in our group that instead of fighting, we became closer to each other. We began to understand the members of our family because being there 24/7 face-to-face with our family, we have to have more patience and we have to appreciate, we began to appreciate what we have. We appreciated our partners and our children, our parents, that they're still there, and that we will, I appreciated the fact that I realized I will be old like my mother, and I have to understand her or treat her as I would like to be treated when I am at her age of 86. Okay. Ano pa ang nag-gain ta? Well, we innovated through technology na technology is there to be used. Technology is there to serve us, not to enslave us, but to serve us. So nakapag-innovate kita through technology. Nakapag-innovate man kita, nakapag-garden kita. No? And some learned how to cook. Some learned only through Google. Or some nakapag-innovate na natuto or naging much better, well, of course, through technology, to be better cook, better raisers of children, raisers of plants, etc. And also, I would also say that although we lost money, some gained money. For example, not because I have a business, but since we retired already, instead of spending money sa pagkakantaluwas, pagbiling ng pagkakan, pag-shopping, pagbiling ng movies, etc., now these are gone. So, the money that I would have spent on this frivolous thing, we have saved for the future. And I think malaking malaking na-save for the future because we don't have to eat out. And one more thing, of course, we watched Netflix or TV, and we started to appreciate Asian movies, Asian dramas. We started to appreciate that instead of watching Hollywood flicks, we started to watch K-drama. No, that the Korean, Japanese, Filipino films and TV shows are even better than Hollywood, American shows. And even yung mga European shows are also good, ha? You know, you just look at Netflix you gain a lot from that. And what we also, ang bilis ng oras, realize, ang bilis ng oras na nasa bahay. It's not boring, ang bilis ng oras. Ang bilis ng panahon. So, there. Maraming salamat.
Yay!
Yay!
Yes.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, groupmate.
Sherry is the batchmate of Judy.
Batchmate of Judy, yes.
She's not right, Judy. 2014.
Hindi payag si Judy.
Okay. Next.
Okay.
I will volunteer, Arnel.
Oh. Okay. Group, anong group kita? Group 1?
Best group.
Okay,
Group
sa first
two.
group.
Group 2 kita, Arnel.
Okay, sa group 2, kaibanan ko si Albert, si TG, at saka si Anneli. So parang similar sa sa picture ni Sherry, we lost mobility. Gabos kami travelers and basically nawara ang travel. Similar also duman sa socialization. So day na nakadalaw sa mga relatives, sa mga friends. Nabanggit ko kami ni Albert siguro, wala si TG, one thing that we actually lost na idaid na babanggit. May liquor ban, so ang last beer me is since February. So imagine without beer for how many months? 6 months, 7 months. So yan, pero ang again, similar time. So Ali naging retrospective, time to move around the village and get to know some of my neighbors. Albert was able to regain some of skills na hindi nagamit before, and siguro pwede share Albert no na you have a plan to write a book, Pandemolina, compilation of your jokes. So maybe abangan yan ng Ibalon. What else? For the future, I think everyone agrees that we are committed to live more healthier. And what else? Anong na-miss ko, TG?
Protesta. Kaya kita makaprotesta.
Nawawara ka, Arnel. Nawawara ka.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things na lost down, sabi ni TG, is our chance to protest. On the other hand, we also gain the time and the skill to express our views via online. So actually, TG reached more people. His ideas was able to reach more people because of the lockdown through social media. And in addition, something I missed. Yeah, okay na? I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ernest.
Thank you, Arnel.
Okay. Para sa group 3, ang kaibanan ko tabi sa grupo, si Vines, dangan si Richard. Okay, tulog kami sa group. In terms of identifying ang mga nawara me or things that we lost during the pandemic, ang na-identify, well, katulad ng sinabi ng iba, socialization, talagang di ka makabisita sa mga friends, dangan sa mga classmates, mga relatives. Tapos mga nagta-travel. So pag-travel, talagang restricted, di ka man lang talaga makaduman na sa mga muyamong duman na ng mga holiday sites, and even for work, affected din. Pero, well, in addition to that, ang sarap pa na considered as lost, yung inability to enjoy the greater quality of life, sabi nga ni Richard. Itong di ka makaduman sa gym, di ka makanood ng mga events, ng mga concert, ng mga other activities na dati mong na-enjoy. Itong active lifestyle mo ba, nawara talaga siya. Tapos, may sarap pa na nabanggit ko din na waran din kami ng pets. May naganda ng sarong dog, dagandangan cat, dahil sa limitation ng pandemic, they open ng mga clinics, so talagang difficile kung nagkakahilang ang pets. So, yun yung in terms of loss. Pero ang dami naming na-identify na na-gain, no? Like, for instance, sa absence ng socialization, na-istorya nga ni Vines, na igwa siyang garden. So, nakulo ng tomato dumandi, bisihuno siyang kagibong tomato sauce. Dagan mga ang pasta ba, tigtataon niya yan sa mga neighbors and friends. Duman sa yaon pa lang siya sa Indiana. And nagbe-bake din pati siya. So, aside from being busy sa working from home, having more time sa harong, mas matindi ang bonding sa family and sa mga aki. Tapos, nagkaigwa din yung chance na mag-connect with relatives, especially those, kasi during the time na pandemic, nag-worry kita sa ano kaya economic status ng mga relatives ka. So, nagkukumustahan, and then, na-istorya nga ni Kansaro na members sa group. So, na-save mo from not spending so much in going out, igwa kang extra money na may share mo niyan sa ibang mga relatives. So, nagpatabang ka naman sa inda financially. Tapos, itong pig-share money vines, habang yaon ka, nagingit-ngit ka duman sa States dahil sa sitwasyon nila duman, mas natuto. She learned to be more intentional in being positive. Ibig sabihin, mag-iisip ka talaga ng paagi how to be more positive na makatabang sa iba. Kaya, so outrage ninda duman. Pig-harness ninda sa outrage. Pig-pasa duman sa social media. Pero in a way na makatabang sa iba. Like providing science-based information, mga aruken. Tapos, sarap pa na gain during the pandemic. Mas naging patient, nag-agree gabos na member kang group, na mas may patience ka to your own weaknesses. Kaya di ka masyadong nadadagit sa iba. Mas nagkakaintindihan. Okay? At bago ko makalimutan, sarap na nag-game. Sabi kang grupo, wait. Nag-gaming weight talaga, literally. Naggarabat. Di ko lang pigapot na kung ilang pounds ang nadagdag. Okay. Para sa pangtulo na point, to the second question, igwa kaming na-identify na tulo na mga magayuno na future na gusto may mag-commute. Una, nangangarap na everyone, the world, to get closer and to take care of each other. Bako lang ining bansa, ining kami lang muna ang mag-take care. Kundi, we should care for each other. I-share ang vaccine, i-share yan. Kasi habang may bansa na igwaki, virus pa, talagang dahil mabilis ang traveling, talagang kakalat pa rin yan. So, picturo yan sa tuyang ang pandemic. Yan ang realization ng group. Okay. That there's the need. Interconnected talaga kita, gabos. Pangdua, ining pandemic, nag-reveal talaga kang weaknesses in terms of structure. Lalo na so inaptitude kang Duterte government. Talagang pinahiling niya so in all its talagang weaknesses, glaring na masyado. Hilingon ka mga tao. Kaya, ganyan pala, nag-iisip na para sa 2022 election. Kasi ibubuto ko na para din na maulit ining mga nangyayari ganyan. So, yan yung second, yung commitment to choose and elect worthwhile mga officials na may commitment talaga para sa mga tao. And may capacity to do it. Ang pangtulo, ang isang na-observe, ang mga bansa na nag-succeed, female ang mga leadership, no? Kaya, ang init na reaction, dapat talaga mga babae na maging presidente, maging prime minister. Okay. Siyempre, halabaw ng diskusyon.
Ang binabay.
Anyway, after a lengthy exchange kang mga views on gender equity, paghiling sa feminine and masculine type of leadership, nag-agree ang group na bako man yun a battle between sexes. Kundi, paano mo i-ensure na yung nurturing, caring trait ng mga feminine leaders, paano i-combine with the empowering and, the masculine positive traits para mas maging effective ang leadership. But anyway, looking forward pa rin talaga na mas magayon ang mga babae na maging head as proven by New Zealand and other countries na nag-succeed din sa pandemic. Yan lang po. May nalingawan tabi ako sa mga kagrupo ko. Mayo nag-comment. So,
savings. More savings.
Yes. Igo pang more savings na-simplify ang lifestyle, talagang mas maghanda talaga sa mga arog kainin mga pangyayari. Yes, salamat. Richard.
Hey!
Thank you, Aisel. You did great.
Ang hirap i-summarize.
Ang person sa grupo, si Fem, Dr. Fem, si Kulas, always, the kulas.
Joe daw siya, Joe.
Si Hazel. Si Hazel ang pinaka-youngest sa Muya. Si Lisa, then ako. Okay, ang na-lost me, kadaklan nagsabi, ano talaga, so paralakwat siya. Lalo na si Kulas na rabaserong numero 1, talagang feel niya na na-confine siya sa harong. Tapos, sindandua na lang ni Leia ang permi naghihirilingan. Okay, pareho din si Pem, si Hazel Iyuman, si Hazel in particular pati, kinasal siya kang nasa pandemic period na. Tama, Hazel, June
Wow. June 6 po.
June 6. Okay, so day naka-attend sa iyang mga relatives from the Philippines. Sasaro niya lang na sister sa US ang yaon duman. So, diiton sinda. And also si Lisa, ganun din. She's a traveler who is almost living on her suitcase. Nasa terminal. Okay. So, talagang mobility ang number 1. Second is, jet setter yan. Also, si Dr. Pem in particular din, nawaran talaga siya ng mga colleagues sa profession na ang iba pa is are very close to her na mga talaga mga very close friends. So, iyan ang nawara talaga sa iya. So, talagang na-feel niya itong pagkawara ka mga taong iya. Ako sa kuya, lang naman, mobility lang talaga. Oo, iyan lang. Kaya may mga special na mga tao na tapos si Hazel talaga itong sa niya sa kasal na dahil naka-attend sa iyang mga family. Okay, so sa what did we gain? Of course, siyempre, Permina, I think it's common to every one of us. So itong more time para sa family. Nakapag-reconnect ulit itong mga kabatchmates ni Hazel with each other. And then si Lisa, bako lang pala ang family kay Lisa, kundi pati ang mga dogs niya sa harong nagka-meridbida niya. Sila.
Banding.
Bako lang, nagbanding sila. Bako lang reconnect. Talagang for the first time nag-connect. Namidbida niya. Pati siya namidbidan din. Kasi dati dahil man siya midbid, ngunyan namidbida na niya. Namidbida na siya. So, bako lang human, kundi talagang back to the animals. And then, and then may mga names na din siya. May mga connection na with yung mga members ng family sa mga dogs niya. And also si Kulas, yun mas lalo pa sindan nag-gel together ni Leia. Tama ako Kulas gusto lalo ka mong
Dati siga ako sa bahay. Ngayon siga pa rin. The opposite pala. Nahalata ko.
Siga trabaho.
Lahat.
Tiga laba, tiga plancha, tiga luto.
The works. Yan ang new norm. New norm.
Yes. Okay. Kasi dahil ka na makalakwat siya. Dahil ka na din makainom. So, talagang
makadulag.
Tapos, in particular, naging more intimate
Kaya pa pala? Kaya pa?
Siyempre.
24/7
Hindi, siyempre yung mga yan, hindi mo i-deny. Yes ka lang na yes.
Sunod na lang siya ng sunod. Diba? Kung kaya pa yan, bahala na mag-define si Kulas. Basta naging more intimate. What is the future, what does the future hold for us? Halimbawa ako, gusto ko magpa-vaccine pag may vaccine na, pero napagkasararoan nila bakong Chinese-made na vaccine. Ibang klase. Alis sa iba. So, baka bigla kami ma-convert. Baka bigla kami ma-convert.
Mag-Chinese speaking
baka biglang Baka bigla
Eh, ang
kami maging
Russian
Chinese
vaccine.
speaking. Well, medyo
You gain another language.
ako pa din. Oo nga eh. So we don't want that. We'd rather have European language. Mas magandang ugon. Oh. And then also, ako nag-gain weight. Okay, ako lang naman nagsabi sa buong grupo mi. All the rest, mga sexy and guwapo pa sila, the same as ever. And then, ano pa ba? Ano nalingawan ko? Please help. Basta, ano yon? We look forward to the future na we'll go back to our work and improve and what else? Tayo ko nabasa. Ano nga nito? May pig-send ka message, Lisa? Ano pa nalingawan ko?
Manay, kapang.
Okay na. Paano? Nagpare-restoryahan na lang kami.
I-restoryahan.
Yan. After kasamuyang sharing na sharing na sa taga-send kami. Yan. Mga something common. And kasi we come from different places. May taga-Kamsur, may taga-Albay, may taga-Ginubatan. Okay, as if ang Ginubatan harayo sa Albay. Okay. Okay, so yun may nalingawan pa ako, pakidagdag na lang po. Ako yung mga ka-groupmates.
Okay.
Okay. Sige. Bye.
Okay. Now we have Doc Momok again.
Yeah. Gutom na kita, boss.
Hindi pa nag-abot ng delivery.
Hindi pa nag-abot ng delivery. Yo. Maraming salamat sa inyo lahat sa pagdalo, sa pagdigdi. Good to see again everyone, especially those I've not seen in a long time. Maraming salamat ulit kay na TG, na Azel. Alam mo, dalawang pag-pronounce. Azel ba o Azel? Azel. I wanted, siguro, since mga gutom na tayo lahat.
No, it's okay.
Please, okay lang.
Please.
I wanted to end na lang with, I have this teammate niya sa cycling, si Brian Huron, who's now doing his PhD in history in Australia. He was the one who got me really crazy into cycling. Kasi minsan nagbibisikleta kami sa UP, sabi ko sa kanya, I'm experiencing a lot of pleasure out of cycling. Tumingin sa akin, pleasure? That's not good. We have to add suffering. So kailangan daw suffering. Beautiful suffering. Anyway, I wanted to share what he posted yesterday yata sa Facebook. No? And maybe I could end with this. No? So I'll just read and end by way of this one. No? So an open letter to anyone who could find use for this. No? Stop waiting for 2020 to be over. 100 days is a long time to hold your breath, to settle for nothing, and to remain unhappy. Besides, there is no guarantee that 2021 will be better. There are just too many variables, and we are not entitled to better than what we currently have. There are less variables involved in finding joy today. You could find a nice corner to sit in and enjoy a few deep breaths, knowing that your lungs are healthy. Healthy pa ba? You could write on paper and marvel at the sight of ink drying. You could ride a bicycle, play that guitar. I still don't know how to play the guitar. Talk to your favorite person. Cook a good meal. Gusto ko matuto ng Bicol Express. Bake and break bread. Dance alone. Maybe might look weird, but the heck, no? Or with someone. Or eat a cookie. Find reasons and ways to be happy. Don't wait. The future is guaranteed for no one. So let me end with that, I think, wonderful reflection. And once again, thank you to everyone. I think PG might have something to say to close the webinar. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mo.
you.
Okay, let's give a big hand to Doc Momok again. I cannot forget what Wilma Rojas said.
Thank you, Momok. Thank you.
So, uulitin mo.
Salamat
Salamat.
din.
Very nice,
That
very
was
nice
very
lecture.
nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, TG, for
Let me just
organizing this.
let me just say
Ryan.
let me just say a few words once again. So I'd like to thank also the we have founding members who attended also. Si Fem was here, no?
Fem.
Goods. Yeah, Goods. And of course, not so founding, but within that vicinity, sila Lodi,
Divine.
Divines.
Ray.
who are Ray, yeah. And then, of course, those who are members of the BOD na approximating founding members, di ba? Si Sherry, of course, no? And as you very well know, as mentioned in the first part, your board of directors is doing its own share initiative of being productive and helpful to our fellow Ibalonians. In our own humble way, we call it Ibalonian. So please monitor and please continue supporting our efforts, small efforts. Itong webinar series na to, the first one by Goods as spearheaded by Vice President Liza Zorbito, was also as successful. We expect a lot of sessions for this. Richard is cooking up really to-dos program that will directly mean benefits for our members through utilization of our what we call yung stimulus program for communities. Then we have programs for incumbents, no? Scholarship programs, and so on and so forth. But again, all of this will be a function of our strong, or how strong our Ibalonian community will be. Like any effort, it will be a successful. As Doc Momok has said, we chart our own course. There are so many ways to deal with the pandemic or the future, but we learn lessons from all our, environment, from everything, and it's being able to stay positive. Ika nga. So with that, may I request everyone to put on their videos again so that we'll be able to have a gallery view and a photo opportunity for our survivors. Again, thanking those survivors. At the height of our seminar, we were about 34, 35. So now we're down to something that, but of course, understandably, they also have to eat. So as it may I thank the webinar team headed by Azel. Anton, palakpakan natin si Anton, of course, no?
Thank you. Salamat.
Yeah, salamat. And last but not the least, of course, a million thanks again to our hunk facilitator, Doc Momok. Those photographs that he showed to us were his own photographs. He's really hands-on.
Photograph.
Wilma, we cannot afford the tuition fee sa Ateneo, no? Pero through our webinars, we are able to enjoy the talent, the wisdom, handsome face of Doc Momok. So with that, Ibalonian, let's give our big hand. As always, we hope to be able to edit this webinar proceedings and edit a little bit more so that we can post it on our Ibalon Facebook groups. So again, thank you very much, Kulas, from all the way from Texas.
Si Kulas expert. Si Kulas expert ano ka na ngayon, surfer. No?
Thank you for your trust and confidence.
Let's have a photo. Everyone, young. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Next time.
Bye-bye.
See you all. Bye-bye.
Next time.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Take good care, everyone.
Sa
Bye.
araw-araw na pamumuhay, paikot-ikot na panahon, walang lakas sunggaban ng pagkakataon.